Merry meet and welcome to Tarot class here at Tarot Tuesday, Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga, and we are streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. We're going to be talking about the Death card today. Woohoo! Love it. We, like I said, are streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. Moderating today on YouTube is the lovely Shirley, and moderating on Twitch is the lovely Deline. Thank you so much, Shirley and Deline. So happy to have everybody on here. Thank you for being here, everybody, today. We are here every Tuesday. We're getting through the Major Arcana, or the Trump cards as they were originally called. And we're going to actually move on to some other stuff after we are finished getting through this. But I think this is a wonderful exercise for us all to look at some of these symbols. And I also like what we're doing here, which is comparing some of the different decks, because that also helps us to uncover some truths. If you are watching us on YouTube, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. If you feel like giving us a donation on YouTube, you can use a super sticker or super chat. Or if you're watching live, or if you're watching on a restream, you could use a super thanks. If you're watching us on Twitch, make sure you follow us on Twitch. And you can watch on Twitch without any ads by subscribing to us there. We have a shop at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com, and we have all the different tarot decks that I read with, if they are still in print. And we make a small commission off of each and every sale, so we do appreciate your support. We are going to be here tomorrow starting at 10:15 for Witchy Wednesday, and I'll just give you a little bit of a clue as to what we're working on. We're doing bindings tomorrow, so if you're into bindings and wanting to know all about bindings, tomorrow is your day. Woohoo! All right, and then we have our astral projection course is continuing on Thursdays at 10:15. If you'd like to register for that course, it's free of charge. You can go to arielgatoga.com/astral-projection. That's arielgatoga.com/astral-projection with a hyphen. We have our Witch's Rosary every Friday, and then we have a Psalm spell every Saturday. I have a brand new blog post on Psalm magic that you might want to take a look at. Just go to my website, ariels-corner.com, click on blogs, and that's my latest blog post on Psalm magic, and I think it kind of gives a nice little outline of how you can get started in Psalm magic. And then on Sunday, we have a live stream lecture. We are continuing our series on the 8 qualities of the divine. And so we only have a couple more of those left. So I hope you can tune in on Sunday as well. All kinds of stuff for us to do here at Ariel's Corner. We only take one day off a week, and that's Monday. So here we are at the beginning of our week. Let's get going, shall we? All right, we are working on the Death card. So let's start with the trusty old Rider-Waite-Smith deck, since that's the one that most people are the most familiar with. All right, we can see that there is a skeleton riding a horse. It's got a rose on a black flag. And this one, it's a little different than the scene in most of the older decks. There are either dead people or mourners, and then it looks like somebody giving last rites here, and the death figure is just surveying everything. But it's a vast landscape of dead things, people mostly. All right, let's look at one of the older, let's look at this Italian deck. This is more in keeping with what the old ones were. This is an active scythe. This skeleton is actually going out. Usually what the skeleton is cutting off with a scythe, it's usually dismembering people or beheading people, but most of the things are coming out of the earth. And let's see if one of these other decks will show that a little bit more clearly. It's interesting that here, one of the things that was destroyed was the artist's palette. There's a looks like a pope's hat, and then there's some armor that's been killed, some books. So there's no, in this particular card, there's nothing that in form that can escape death, is kind of what that's looking like it's meaning. But you can see these are The only similarity is that there's the skeleton, but this one, the scythe is not there. He's holding a flag instead. All right, this is a Marseille version. This is here. This is a little bit more in keeping with the traditional Marseille look. It's heads and feet. So and they're all kind of coming out of the earth. So the scythe is this, like the Grim Reaper is cutting things that are coming out of the earth that happen to be human body parts, either limbs or heads. Actually, it looks just mostly like hands and heads here. No, there's a foot. Yeah, there's a foot, hands, and some heads. Let's see what this Spanish tarot is. Very similar. This is also, these two are very traditional in that they only have the number on the card. They don't actually label it death, which is how the original, or the older, I don't know about original, because I'm not sure that we know what the original of anything was with the tarot, but the oldest decks that we have, the death card is the only one in the Trump suit that is not labeled with anything but the number. So, and again, so this one isn't just feet. This one has a leg. This one has some heads, some feet, hands. This hand had a glove in it. A few little leaves. Okay. Let's look at Manly P. Hall and see what he does. He usually tries to bring it together with, oh no, this is more in keeping with the ancient one. So he's got a head of a king, he's got the head of, that looks like some kind of princess, two hands, and then just some nondescript heads here that he's decided to lop everybody's head off. And there's one arm kind of growing out of the earth there. Interesting. They always have some little symbol in the Manly P. Hall, and this one looks like it's a triangle in a square, which the square, I think, is because 13 reduces to 4, and so this is sort of relating this card to the Emperor, I believe. All right. Let's talk about some of the more esoteric versions of death and then look at what it means divinatorially, or could mean, doesn't have to mean. Oh, the other thing too is this one has a sun setting or sun rising in the distance with, it looks like some kind of castle on a mountain. I don't know if that's a castle, some kind of structure on the mountain. But these do not. These are just wastelands here. So that was something that Waite decided was important, was to give something in the background. Waite was very highly involved in the design of the trump cards or the major arcana, and not so much in the design of the minor arcana. He gave Pamela Coleman Smith, whom he hired, pretty much free rein to illustrate the minors however she wanted, because they were not that interesting to him. What was important to him were these trump cards, and there is very little evidence to support that she had free rein. She might have suggested, but he needed final approval on all of that. So he definitely wanted this scene. All right, so everything in the older decks, especially, the things that are being cut down are things coming out of the earth, and they are usually human body parts coming out of the earth. So this talks about what death can do. Death can change form. It can change things that come from the earth, like our bodies. But it's very clear that nothing else can be touched by death. The only thing death can do is cut down form. Now, if you think in terms of something burning up, you can take you can take just a piece of paper. You can take a piece of paper and burn it up. The paper didn't disappear. It turned into ashes. So it transformed, it changed form. It transformed from one thing to another. right? The same thing goes for all of these body parts. Yeah, they will decay and they will become part of the earth again, but they're not going to disappear. So death can't make anything disappear. What it can do is change its form from one thing to another. Now, esoterically speaking, we can't die when we relate ourselves to life. Life cannot be killed. Death has no power over life. Death has power over form. Not substance, but form. Like we've said, death can't make something disappear, but it can change its form. It can destroy a form utterly so that the life that was expressing itself through that form appears to have gone, but it can't touch life because life goes on. So when we get death in a reading, it's so important to understand that it rarely portends the death of the physical body. I mean, it can. It's not that it can't be a prediction of that, but it's rarely that. I can't remember, maybe once I got death in a reading and somebody was dying and it just seemed really obvious that they were going to die as a result of that. But the rest of the time when death comes up, it's not even a negative thing. It's usually you just gotta clean house here. You just gotta get rid of these forms. These forms must die. And it's usually the things that are problematic that must die. Let's see here. So in this Italian deck, which is it's a repainting. These are paintings that are based on old Italian wood cuttings. So the symbols are pretty accurate. But the things which seem very important to a person, their art, their protection, their religion, their knowledge, are subject to death. So it makes people feel very vulnerable when death can go through and destroy things that seem important to that person. But it's important on an initiatory level that we go through those fears. In fact, any real initiation has to do with a death and a rebirth. I'm out of the reading and back into the esoteric here. I'm sorry about that. I keep switching too fast. But just in terms of just meditating on the death card, if you are on a magical path, you're on a path of initiation, whether it's a formal path of initiation or not. And part of that initiation is going through a death and a rebirth. And sometimes it can be a series of deaths and rebirths. And that's where we question all of the things that we think are very important. Maybe it's our creativity. Maybe it's our religion. Maybe it's our spiritual path. Maybe it's our wealth. Maybe it's the things that we know. Maybe it's our feeling of safety in the world. All of those things can be threatened by death. And to allow those things to be threatened by death and recognize that we are still invincible as souls, as spirits, even without all of those things, we are still creative, protected, spiritually elevated, wise, knowledgeable, safe. All of those things are still true for us, even once the trappings of those things are gone. In fact, death cutting away the trappings of those things enables those things to be real in our lives, because we are not looking to the symbols for those things anymore, but we are experiencing where those things exist in our minds. And the mind can't die. The mind can't die. The thoughts can die if we choose to let them go, but that's usually up to us. And oftentimes it's when the forms in our lives that are threatened or taken away from us that we have to confront how we can connect with what those things symbolized on a deeper level, to recognize that they can't be killed, that those things can't die, but they can be transformed, they can be elevated. And so sometimes when things are threatened in the physical, that's when we appreciate them most. That's when we can find their inner source and recognize how invulnerable to death we actually are. And that's the power of something like an initiation. There are studies of ancient tribal types of initiations, including druidic initiations, where people were buried alive for several days, or something heavy placed upon them, where they were bound for several days, so that they could go through a feeling of being dead, where they had to confront all of the things in their lives which they thought were valuable, and recognizing that that through this symbolic death, that they could find the source of all of those things, of their true power, which lies beyond what we are sort of addicted to as trappings in this world. So, not that you should go through any extreme kind of initiation ceremony, but you can understand how initiation goes that way. Sometimes in an initiation, whether it's something that we're doing, like I said, formally, or whether it's something that we're allowing to be done for us by our own guides, we have to go through death and rebirth. We have to have things stripped away from us. And it can be scary. It can be uncomfortable. And that's the point, that what we think can be threatened is the problem. If it can be threatened, then us relying on it as the source of our good is putting us into a place where we are vulnerable. But when we recognize those things can't be threatened, because even if everything was taken from us in this life, we have the same creative power inside of us to create those forms again in even better ways. And so sometimes when form, back to the divination, sometimes when we get this death card in a reading, it means that form needs to be cut away to make way for new forms. Because the old forms are causing problems for us. The old forms are causing stagnation for us. And it's time for death to come in with that scythe and do a clear cut so that we can start fresh. And so in that way, death is very, very positive. Death is a very important, necessary initiator. And it's not something that is to be feared. It's not something to be necessarily even worshipped or adored, but it is something to understand is there to allow us to see what's real and what's not real, because the only thing that can be destroyed in this world is ultimately what we would call the illusions of this world. And that's not to say that the things aren't real. Like when we lose a loved one, or when we lose a job, when we lose property, it's not that those things weren't real from our experience in the world, but they're illusory in that we believe that those things had any permanence to begin with. And also that we believed that those things were the source of our happiness, the source of our prosperity, the source of our joy, the source of our good in any way. And so in that way, when death comes in and clear cuts things for us, we get an opportunity to, after we've finished any kind of mourning process that's natural, to begin again and to see where power really lies, and to recognize that it's up to us not to put our sense of security into things that are insecure, to put our sense of stability into things that are unstable, and to put our sense of permanency into things which are impermanent. Because everything in the physical world is going to change form. Every form will disappear. Every building will fall. Every stone will eventually wear away. Everything in the physical world is ultimately temporary, even if it takes millions of years to wear away. But also, by the same token, the physical world is always home to new forms and to new things coming about and to new things being. And it's that cycle of birth and death on any level that is the mystery of the physical universe, and why it's so important for us to recognize the transitory nature of the physical universe so that we don't get caught in the illusion that there's something permanent to be had in the physical world, but that the physical world is merely an expression of ideas. And as those ideas change, whether they are ideas on our personal mind, the collective mind of humanity, or the mind of the Creator itself, that those forms change, and that's natural, normal, and it's a good thing. All right. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I so appreciate you. Let's see if anybody has any questions. Doesn't look like it. Thank you so much for being here. We will be back for another tarot lesson next week, and I hope you can join us for all of our magic streams this week. Thank you so much to the amazing moderators. Today we had Shirley on YouTube and Deline on Twitch, and we will see you all really soon. Much love and many, not bluff, much love and many, many blessings.